Hi everyone, this is Dr. Heather Austin Robillard again, and this lecture video is going to be on specific components of prevention in the media. This lecture will specifically highlight how to use the media in order to promote prevention efforts for substance use disorders. Given the importance of media on influencing people, media literacy is a new school-based substance abuse prevention approach. Media literacy focuses on the powerful role that media has on influencing the use of alcohol and drugs. It is a framework to assess, analyze, evaluate, and create in messages in a variety of forms from print to video. It builds an understanding of the role of media in society as well as essential skills of inquiry and self-expression necessary for citizens of democracy. Being media literate allows you the skills to not only understanding the obvious surface messages from media, but also the underlying values and points that are embedded within all media messages. Media literacy is concerned with helping students develop an informed and critical understanding of the nature of mass media, the techniques used by them, and the impact of these techniques. Specifically, it is education that is aimed to increase the students' understanding and enjoyment of how the media works, how they produce meaning, and how they are organized, also how they construct reality. At some point, they must practice decision-making about media for the time no one is around to guide them. Media literacy also aims to provide students with the ability to create their own media products. Some of the research media literacy outcomes that have come about are that they are able to increase the media skepticism, so being skeptical about specific media messages. They have increased the efficacy in resisting pro-drug messages. So for individuals to, on their own, resist the influence of these pro-drug media messages. They've also allowed for the greater ability to produce counter-arguments to beer advertisements, again, that critical thinking, and they've increased teen beliefs that smoking and drinking is wrong. It's reduced the intentions to use alcohol and tobacco in future as well. Okay, so for the media campaigns, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to create social media campaigns based on what SAMHSA tells us to do. SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and it provides some great information on social marketing. In this, it talks about the 10 steps for developing a social marketing campaign. One, you want to make sure you're defining your audience. Be specific and learn as much as possible about that target audience so that way your social media campaign is influencing them specifically and not some outside audience members. We need to identify evaluation measures. So this is a big part of prevention efforts, evaluating whether the campaign that's implemented is going to provide us the outcomes for our specific goals. So then how will we get this information, the intended messages, to our audience? Are we going to give it to them directly, or is it going to be indirect? Magazine articles, billboards, social media. We've got to determine that. We need to identify what are going to be the benefits. Why would target audiences want to adopt this behavior that our campaign is going to highlight? Then also identifying the obstacles to achieve this exchange in behavior. What are the obstacles that might prevent members from the target audience from adopting the new behaviors? Step 6 is determine the message. This is where we critically are writing what is the message that we want them to read from our campaign. So creating a new message that builds on what they've learned. So an example of this is use a designated driver. That tells them what they can do instead rather than just don't drink and drive. Test and refine. So you want to test it among a sample of an audience to determine how it has an impact and then what tweaks need to be made so that you can do it to the overall audience. And then of course collect data on this to see how beneficial it has been so that you can evaluate it. Modify your work based on this data, and then write an evaluation report to kind of see, should we implement this social marketing campaign with other audiences or in other areas. Above the influence is a specific social marketing campaign. It uses a lot of social media as a way to increase the coolness of not using drugs. It helps teens to stand up to peer pressure. It uses the commercials, internet, Facebook, and the awareness of messages received about drugs and alcohol. You want to be aware of the presentation tools you're using for media literacy that will most likely impact your target audience. You may not want to use a radio excerpt that is at 10 o'clock in the morning when most of your target population is in high school, because then they're unlikely to read or to hear that. The more people that watch, the less they know, but the more they think they know. Create an attitude that encourages critical thinking, discussion, and participation. So it's not just about you need to know this and you should listen. It's about how do you engage in critical thinking for these individuals. Also, we're not trying to influence that all media is bad. When you're not sure whether something will be useful to use in the media, leave it out. Being brief is key. And technology and media can be a great tool. It has not caused all the problems in our society. Remember, media advocacy is a media strategy used to advance a social or public policy initiative. For example, the public health model calls for communities to implement strategies that target the individual, the drug itself, and the environment. Media advocacy shifts the message from the individual behavior to the collective change. In order to use media advocacy as a strategy for social policy, you want to emphasize the social dimensions of the problem. For example, cheap alcohol is an invitation to drink more. Shift the primary responsibility away from the victim to those whose decisions affect these conditions. Who has control of those? Bar owners that give discounts, the newspaper advertising. Present policy alternatives as a solution. It is important to focus on policy goal that avoids conflicting policy solutions. Some policies could be bar policies against discounting drinks or newspaper policies to refuse ads for discounts. Make a practical appeal to support the solution. Depending on the policy goals, call the bar owners, the newspapers, the management, or city council to implement this policy. Here are some of the channels for ways to get your messages to the public and to the policymakers. You can do letter writing, op-eds, editorial board meetings, media conferences, social media, paid media advertisements. Social marketing is a systemic application of marketing to achieve specific behavioral goal for social good. It can be applied to promote merit goods or make society avoid demerit goods and to promote the society's well-being as a whole. Social marketing has included campaigns not just for substance use. It's been done for seatbelts and following speed limits, not smoking in public. The 4 key principles of social marketing are voluntarily changing through principle of exchange. There is a clear benefit for the individual to change. The use of marketing techniques such as market research, segmentation and targeting, a marketing mix of different methods aimed at the benefit of the individual and society and not just as an organization. An example of those have been the truth campaigns that have been going on for years for anti-smoking in the U.S. The research has suggested that these campaigns have actually decreased smoking habits in youth by 22%. So it's fairly successful to be able to use that.